What are passkeys? I added this question. What is a passkey? Are they like their names? I hope so. How are they different from passwords? Hopefully they're better, because if you haven't learned by now, we kind of rag on passwords a little bit. Next question will give it away. Why are passwords so flawed? Wait, passwords are flawed?
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Newsflash.
What are 3 big problems with password? Catch that. That's 3 big problems. Yep, Houston, we have a problem. Could passkey be the solution we've been waiting for to make the internet safer? This question I really loved. I was like, wait a second, what? Make the internet safer? I'm game, because we desperately need that.
Yeah. We do.
So,
For sure.
all right. Welcome back, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Nick, and this is Super Simple Security Principles. Listen each week and learn how to think, not what to think. This is episode 44, listener question, the promise of the passkey. All right, man. Dude, you got me geared up. And I'm legitimate. I'm kind of excited to learn more about what are passkeys.
Yeah, well, and so this is not a listener question you gave me, but it's one that I've gotten from a number of people. And so this episode, we're kicking off an answer to this. I say kicking off as opposed to just answering because as this won't
It's
come.
going to be a series, huh?
I'll say you can see it. It's these questions, they just end up not single episodes. My guess for this one is going to be 3 or more. I know it'll be at least 3 because I already know the three things that are big enough for individual episodes. So
All right. So
yeah. So
gear up
today,
for this.
yeah, exactly. And our focus today is just going to be the benefits, or as I put in the title, the promise of passkeys.
Okay.
Now I know. So what this kind of came from listeners is some of people have reported to me that Gmail, and I don't know if you've seen this, but has started suggesting that they use a passkey. Popped up
Yeah.
asking about it. Okay.
Yep.
And Gmail's not the only one. Might see it at other major websites as well. So we have kind of a unique opportunity with this episode, Nick.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be. So the idea with. Yeah, let me explain it this way, right? So you asked, what is a passkey?
Yeah.
And that's kind of a complicated, long answer, right? Which is why there's going to be multiple episodes. So we're going to start with a simple answer today, where we don't go into all the details, all the mechanics of passkeys. We're just going to explain what their purpose is. So that'll give you a partial answer, right, to what is a passkey.
Perfect.
And that
what
is
a
that
passkey's purpose?
Yeah, their passkey's purpose, and their purpose is to, a lot of P's in there, are meant to replace passwords entirely. That's the long-term vision.
Okay.
Now, there's a lot of caveats. How do we get there? How long is that going to take? All sorts of things. But that's at least their intent. And so that's the answer for today, is that they are a password replacement.
Okay.
And actually, I guess I didn't have this in my original notes, but I was thinking, for now, the other thing actually that they really function as well, and we'll talk about this more later, but they can function just as a 2FA, this two-factor authentication as well. So you could use your password, and then they're a very strong form of 2FA as well.
Excellent.
And so that's another purpose that they could fulfill today. Even though they can be used standalone without a password as well, they can be used either way.
All right.
So we will get into the other, exactly what they are, how they work, and we'll get glimpses of that today, but mostly in the next episodes. And the reason why I figured, it's like I said, it's going to be a little bit tricky, giving you a warning. And so that's why I want to start with the benefits, because it's like, okay, well, why do I care?
Yeah.
Let's give you some motivation, some reason to listen.
Let's light the
Okay.
fire under you to make this happen.
Yeah. Sort of anyway. At the end, right. So that's going to be we're going to have probably a whole episode even just talking about where passkeys are in their journey of maturity, and are they ready? Because it's not just I'll give the spoiler now. At the end of this, it's not going to be as simple as a call to action of everybody go out and adopt passkeys everywhere you can. I wish it were that simple, but
okay.
It's not. We're not there in the journey of passkeys. I hope that will be the case one day. That's the vision for it, but it's not quite that simple yet. So,
Gotcha.
But yeah. So, and the short answer really of why though it's worth considering and why we're doing this at all is because passkeys do protect you so much better than a password does.
Excellent.
So now I referenced earlier, and then like the uniqueness of this episode. So we're going to be comparing passkeys to passwords. And we've talked about passwords a ton. I know you know and understand a lot about them at this point. Right. So if you're up for it, we're going to kind of make this a little bit of a pop quiz for you. Test your password.
Right.
Test your password knowledge. Our listeners can follow along and do the same. I'll fill in the blanks wherever they're missing, but and
let's see how well Squishy paid attention.
Yeah, well, so we can kind of compare, right? Review, because really the main way to understand these and their value is to compare, basically all the flaws of passwords on the one hand, and then what that looks like with passkeys and where their strength is, right? Because they're all going to be paired,
Yeah.
But it's important to revisit what exactly the problem is there so we can see very clearly what the strength is. So that's what I'm thinking. You up for it?
I'm up for it. Let's go for this.
Good. So my first question, and it's going to sound like a trick question maybe because it's so simple, but it's not intended to. It's just an opening point. Is what is a password?
What is a password? A password is something you enter in, you type into the computer that apparently verifies you say who you say you're trying to be.
Yeah. Right, I know, and it's kind of awkward, right? You're like, oh, this is like I know, because I mean it's and so this kind of underscores one of the problems with them. All it is, it's so simple, and it's its strength and its weakness, right? It's so simple that everybody can understand it. It's just, it's a word, essentially, right? Sometimes multiple words, but conceptually just kind of a word, right? That lets you pass, get into a website, let you into someplace, right?
Right.
Or in geek speak, it's authentication.
Okay, authentication. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's another useful way, kind of, if we flip this a little bit, is let's ask, what passwords are not, because there's for example, no universal rule for how strong a password should be, what it should look like, right?
Right.
Some places even today still allow like super weak passwords, like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Don't
while
use
others,
that password. If you haven't learned anything yet, don't use that password.
Yeah, right. Well, and then other places just totally drive you insane with their requirements.
Yeah, I can see that.
So when you think about a password, that's not part of what's specified. It's not built into the concept of a password. Another thing is there's no standard, again, no universal rule about how they should be safely stored, either by the website where you're logging into or on your end. I know lots of people who just store them, in a text file or a spreadsheet on their computer, or even in Google Drive in some cases, and anyway, there's a bunch more geeky stuff we could dive into, but those are just a couple examples to kind of demonstrate the point that passwords, there's nothing built around them to help them be safe. They're just this very simple, almost human, pure human, as opposed to computer, concept that is, the simplicity is why they adopted, why they've served us well so far, at least in some ways, but they have a lot of failings. And so in contrast, passkeys are much, much harder for a human to understand because they have all this tech built around them. The computer basically does all the hard stuff for you.
Okay.
Because they're built specifically to solve every problem that we've encountered with passwords. That's the idea.
Good.
That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So my next question on your quiz here, Nick,
Yeah,
is
let's go.
what do you see as the flaws of passwords?
Anybody can get your password. If there's a data breach and all of a sudden your password's compromised, they can get it. Now they need to go to that website to where you used it. Hopefully you're not reusing that password if you haven't learned anything by now. But realistically, heck, if somebody was a good enough guesser or they could potentially guess your password.
Yep. So you've hit on two of them, right? There's the data breaches, there's the guessing, and that it takes a lot of effort to actually pick a strong one, right?
Right.
And there's one other big one that I'm looking for.
Uh-oh.
There's three. Remember, we talked in our opening question. We got the three. We
Yep, the
addressed
three
the why.
big problems.
We addressed the why because there's no tech built around. They're just simple. And we've got the two of the three. So that's where we almost got, phishing.
Ah. Yeah.
Right? Because you can easily give your password to a phishing website.
Right. Yep.
Okay. So those are the three problems and fixes we're going to be kind of focusing on are data breaches, phishing, and guessing.
Yep.
So we'll start with data breaches. So, and you kind of already answered this one, but why are passwords a problem in data breaches, Nick?
Because look, this is going to be Nick's terms.
Yeah, no, that's good.
There's been so many data breaches that your password's most likely compromised. And once it's been compromised, you've got to either A, go rechange it, or do nothing, And how many of us are going out and changing our passwords once we find out there's been a compromise? How many of us are actively looking to see if our passwords have been compromised? Better question, right?
Right.
But
how many are reusing passwords that causes all that you're talking about in the first place?
Exactly.
Yep.
So, that's my biggest beef with passwords right there is there's no real way to manage a whole great group of passwords and feel like it's secure.
Yeah. Well, and so here's kind of how I'll summarize it. In security, there's this concept of a shared secret. Okay, and
Yeah.
that just means it's something, like a password, where if it's shared, that means then more than one person knows it, right? In a password, it's
Right.
you and obviously the website that you're logging into. Now, that's useful in some cases, in a lot of cases actually, because say I want to have an encrypted, private, secure chat with you. Well, we've got to have a shared secret, right? Because we want to both be able to read it, but nobody else to read it, right? And that's
Right.
dependent on, at a high level, that's just called a shared secret, that aspect of it. But the problem with a shared secret is that it can be stolen from any of the people who know it, right? So just like a secret in real life, the more people you tell, right, the more likely it's going to get out, right? The best kinds of secret are one known by only one person,
Right. Yeah.
And so, and like you said, if we have these websites that have, they store our passwords along with millions of other users, then the bad guys can steal, all those passwords at once instead of one at a time. It makes their job really easy.
Right.
Now, just to be clear on this, with passwords, there are a lot of things that website owners can do to mitigate this risk. It's not as just easy if they're doing the right things that they're just come steal that password. But the thing is, again, there's no rules about this. They often don't do this. And so, but with Passkeys, there are no shared secrets. The website owners cannot have your passkey no matter what they do.
Nice. I'm liking this already.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, at least if you're like me, you're like wondering, okay, how is that possible though? Because I mean, they're the ones who've got to let me in.
Right, right.
Kind of sounds impossible. So here's one way that I found to explain it, that you tell me if it makes any sense to you, but it's sort of like having a one of a kind key that's designed to go in a one of a kind lock. The website has the lock, but you're the only one that ever has that key.
I like that.
Okay. Because that's, I mean, it's very analogous to what is happening, you know, at the geek level.
Okay, okay.
We'll
I
say,
like
we'll
that.
say.
I like that.
Okay. So it, you know, it involves some tricky math and some sweet stuff that people came up with years ago that, I mean, I don't even actually like fully understand all of it at the really deep level, but it's, yeah, it's the foundation of our, basically our whole internet security is uses these same kind of principles that passkeys are built on.
Cool.
So,
Cool.
and we are going to talk about it a little bit more in next episode. So, okay. So, time for your next question, though, Nick.
All right, let's have it.
So, why are passwords? Because we talked about data breaches. The next one's phishing. You know, why are passwords a problem when it comes to phishing?
Because look, you could enter in your password or give them your password, and once they've got in, they're in.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
You know?
And we had a whole episode about this in 37,
Yeah.
where it basically boils down to we can accidentally give our password to the bad guys. There's no
Right.
Again, there's no tech built around passwords inherently to prevent that. If you go to a website that looks like what you're expecting, you could just type it in.
Yeah. And
And
look,
again,
I
yeah.
admitted in that episode that it had happened to even me. Like I'd click
Oh, yeah.
onto, one that I thought was legit, clicked onto it, started entering in information. Luckily, I didn't get to the username and password yet, but I did get in some information before I realized, holy crap, this isn't what I wanted it to be. This is phishing. And so, and phishing attacks are only going to get more and more complicated and technical and better, and so yeah, that's the risk. You could accidentally give away your password. You could be handing out the key and they could be making copies of that key and passing it around.
Yep. Well, and I'm glad you mentioned the attacks get better or worse depending on your perspective, right?
Right,
They get
right,
harder to
right.
defeat anyway. But that's one of the
Correct, yeah.
absolute kind of general truisms in online security is threats. They in general they just get worse over time.
Yeah.
So, although actually I say that, but then I think about some of the ways that we're learning to solve this, and if passkeys really can bring to pass what they're talking about, then I think actually they could buck that trend in a lot of ways. So we're going to
Nice.
hope for that.
Let's make this happen.
Yeah, but with phishing anyway, with passkeys, phishing is not possible. And if we go, back to our lock and key analogy, basically it's like, so you are the originator of that lock and key. Okay, like it's like you're the manufacturer yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you give your lock to the website.
Okay.
But when you do that, you're like, okay, I'll make a little note in my notebook that I gave that lock to this website. It's that pass key is tied to that specific site. And then, and then even in like the worst case where say somebody did steal your lock from that website, right? Unless they've actually taken over the website, if they're just impersonating it like a normal, if it's an actual just phishing attack, we wouldn't use our key on it because it would still be a different domain. It'll be a different website.
They wouldn't have the right lock.
Yeah. Well, no. So no. So this is a different thing, right? That's what I'm saying is they could even steal the lock, right? And that would be okay because what you're doing. So I kind of mangled that explanation. Let me explain it this way.
Okay.
The way to avoid phishing, just like today, the human way, right, is if you're on a website, before you put in your password, you look at the browser bar, you look at the address bar, in your browser, and you check what the website is. And if it's not the one you're expecting, then don't type your password in there.
Right.
Right. Now, obviously, we don't want to rely on us humans remembering to do this check. This is the problem, right? Happens all the time. But Passkeys do that automatically. That's part of it. It's built into the system. They're not going to forget. It's not going to be bypassed.
Excellent. Similar to some password managers.
Yes. Yeah. Password managers help with that. Yep. Exactly. They do the same checking. Yes. They won't accidentally automatically fill in a password to the wrong website. Yep. And what I was saying with the lock is, we'll try once more because. So here's two scenarios. One is phishing and one is much, much worse than phishing. So there's lots of phishing attacks on Amazon.com or Gmail.com or whatever. There's fake versions of those all the time, right? That happen. This is a common attack. And that is protected against. One level more is even protected against. Say they somehow got in and stole your lock from Amazon, or somehow it got leaked out into the world what your lock was. And say that phishing website had your actual correct lock. Even in that case, you would not fall prey to that. Okay? Because it's not just about the lock. There's two pieces of information. There's not only the lock, but there's also what website that lock is assigned to.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then, so the only way, and this is, the third case, I guess, actually I said two, is if Amazon.com itself was fully taken over. At which point it doesn't matter if it's passkeys or passwords or anything, because then they own Amazon.com, and that is not a scenario that we have any control or influence over, right?
At that point
just a
in time, it's out of our
catastrophic
hands.
scenario. Yes, exactly. So it's irrelevant to the whole conversation.
Okay.
So, in other words, passkeys are as good as it gets.
Excellent.
Okay. So the third one, guessing. Now, honestly, I'm not really sure. I wasn't sure of a good question for you on this, Nick. Because you kind of, I guess it just comes down to the fact that, with passwords, we don't, there's no rules, and we like to be lazy and pick easy passwords, right? And so,
who doesn't?
Yeah. So that's really what it comes down to. There's no guaranteed strength, and the stronger the password, basically, the more inconvenient.
Right. Absolutely. I would agree with that.
So it's always going to be an uphill battle.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, I went back and, as far as the guessing thing goes, we actually talked about this way back in episode 2 now. But yeah, I know it's kind of cool, but about how hackers guess your passwords, right? And it's pretty amazing how good they are at finding patterns, and with the help of computers, of course, but they've gotten really good at guessing passwords. And so this really is a significant issue. Coupled, not only are they good at guessing, but with the human tendency to not want to. This is part of the reason why websites have all these requirements and stuff. But that still isn't even always enough. And the good news with passkeys is all that goes away. You don't pick anything. Nothing.
Yeah.
They generate the passkey for you entirely. There's no weird password character requirements, hoops to jump through. And actually, technically, you don't even need a username.
Wow.
Yeah, because of that one-of-a-kind lock and key that we talked about, that basically identifies you already.
Very cool. Very cool.
Now,
Makes
in
sense.
yeah, okay, well, good. I wasn't sure if that connection would be obvious or not.
Dude, that tie-in between the unique lock and unique key was cool, and me being the creator of both and then handing out the lock and assigning that lock, it stuck home. So yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I'm sure places are still going to want your email address so they can send you email and stuff. So it probably won't stop them from asking it, even though they don't need a username. But
Right.
okay, so then the other thing on this guessing aspect that's interesting is, okay, so the passkeys are generated, right? But
Mm-hmm.
how strong are they? Because we have those password strength meters, right?
Right. Right.
And well, the short version is they are off the chart strong. They're strong
Nice.
as basically anything. And so, well, and I kind of referenced this earlier with the serious math that we're talked about. And like I said, the whole internet is dependent on it. And as you might expect, there are people trying to break it. Um, and
Of course.
honestly, in a way, I expect that day will probably come eventually. You know, I mean, and there's actually work being done on trying to kind of prepare for that day too by certain people, right? Uh, and we watched Sneakers together, right? If you remember,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it explores exactly this idea, like this idea of like this skeleton key that can unlock everything.
Right.
And if somebody did break the encryption that passkeys, or this math algorithm that passkeys are based on, that's sort of what it would be like. Um, you know, like the entire internet. And I mean, they were able to keep it on the down low at least for the few minutes of when we saw it in the movie, right? But
Right.
in reality, like that secret's not going to stay a secret for long. The whole
It's gonna
internet's
be
going
out
to
quick.
know and break. I mean, it's going to be an interesting day. So I know I'm computer geek, get kind of
Right. I
weird
love it,
thinking
dude. I
about
love
it,
it.
but
We're kicking out thinking about it. I'm like, holy shoot. I hope that doesn't happen.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. So, um, yeah, and I think that's it as far as those are, the data breaches, phishing, guessing, and they really cover it all so well.
Okay. Excellent. That's a pretty good fire lit under me to make me want to use them.
Yeah. Well, okay, so then I'm going to lead us into our call to action then, because as I kind of alluded to at the start of this, I'm not quite ready to invite anyone to start using passkeys. I mean, at least, we'll do it conditionally in a couple episodes. Um, so, thinking about what's the call to action for today, here's what I came up with. Think about your most important accounts,
Okay.
and I hope, emails first on that list, and ask yourself, wouldn't it be nice if they had the kind of protection we're talking about today?
Yeah.
And just consider, because yeah, well,
So
we'll dive into that. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
consider the security options that passkeys provide. That's a good call to action. I mean, think about how it would benefit your life so that in these next episodes, as we talk about it, you can integrate it more fully.
Yeah, yeah, and decide, because at the end of the day, it's going to be understanding what the costs. There's not a money cost necessarily, but how it's going to impact you to try to start using them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yep. Okay, and so then my last note, since we did our call to action, is as far as the future episodes, the two at least that I know of that I want to talk about is, and probably the next one will be more of the mechanics of what they are and how they work. Dive into that lock and key a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think so anyway. Maybe that'll suffice for us. I don't know. I got to think about it, but that's my tentative idea. And then I definitely know I want to do one on where passkeys are in their journey of maturity, and the pros and cons of using them. Specifically, they provide a lot of security benefits, but what are the usability costs is kind of one of the big questions to look at with that. So
awesome.
Okay, that's it.
Is that all you got for us?
Yep.
I love it. That's our episode, man. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, that's our super simple show today. If you're not a member of the IHP Academy already, please come join us for free. Stop searching the whole internet for answers and never knowing who to trust. Ask us instead. We made it super simple to find us, and it only takes 2 minutes to sign up. Just visit helpmegetsafe.com. Enter your name and your email. You're in. You can also find the link in our show notes. Thank you for joining us, and make it a great day. Bye-bye.